Before we get started, I have a quick favor. I've been self-funding the Finding Genius podcast for 5 years now. I've done over 3,000 episodes. And as you can see on YouTube, we're up over 1 million views on the channel, which is fantastic. The next thing I really want to push on is to get up to 10,000 subscribers. Because once we do, we'll be able to put a donate button and we'll be able to solicit donations to help keep the podcast running and to also get the Finding Genius Foundation moving along. We have a big project studying anxiety, depression, and PTSD and working on a product to help people overcome these problems because I've seen them explode recently after the last 2 years of the whole virus situation. So if you would, please subscribe to the podcast. That would help us tremendously. Give us a thumbs up and check in the description for Buy Me a Coffee. It's about $5. If you could buy me a coffee, I'd really appreciate it. It would help keep the channel going, and I love coffee. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Nieusma. I have a PhD in toxicology, been in the field for 37 years. I specialize in human exposure to toxic substances, whether it's drugs, chemicals, microbials, or whatever it is. We're going to talk about toxicities in today's environment, how the world is toxic, and how you can combat that to stay on this rock as long as possible. Should be a great podcast.
Forget frequently asked questions,
common sense, common knowledge, or Google.
How about advice from a real genius? 95% of people in any profession are good enough to be qualified and licensed. 5%
go above and beyond.
They become very good at what they do, but only
0.1%
are real geniuses. Richard Jacobs has made it his life's mission to find them for you. He hunts down and interviews geniuses in every field: sleep science, cancer, stem cells, ketogenic diets, and more. Here come the geniuses. This is the Finding Genius Podcast
with Richard Jacobs.
Hello, this is Richard Jacobs with the Finding Genius podcast. My guest today is Joe Nieusma. He's a senior toxicologist at Live Longer Labs. We're going to talk about a molecule called C60, which is also known as a fullerene, and its use in the body and in supplements and in toxicology. So welcome, Joe. Thanks for coming.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate being here, Richard. I enjoy the chance to share some good things about C60.
Well, tell me a bit about your background first. What attracted you to toxicology? How long have you been doing it?
Well, I got a PhD in toxicology from the University of Colorado School of Pharmacy, and I've been in the field of toxicology 37 years. Back in the late 80s, I applied to 8 medical schools and 2 graduate programs when I was working for Dow Chemical in Midland, Michigan. And lo and behold, I got into 2 graduate programs and not a single medical school. They weren't interested in white males with average GPAs and not really a whole slew of relevant extenuating extracurricular activities. And the guys at Dow Chemical said, well, go to graduate school and, get your PhD and then you could do science. And I had the biology, the chemistry, the physiology, the anatomy, everything. And the 2 graduate programs, one of them was in Richmond, Virginia, and the other one was out in Boulder, Colorado. And I picked the one in Boulder, Colorado for 2 reasons. One of them, my brother was living out there. And the second one was that the stipend was $100 more a month than the one in Virginia. So, I was just a dumbass kid that was coming out of undergrad and trying to figure out where to go in life, when you're young and think you know everything, but you really don't know anything. So, I call it gradual school because it took me a long time to get through. And I really learned critical thinking skills, learned how to evaluate problems and think about solutions. And it's really graduate school, exposed me to some really smart people and helped me get to where I am today. I got out of graduate school. I didn't do a postdoc. I went right to a real job in the pharmaceutical industry. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for about 6 years and then opened my own toxicology practice and started doing pharmaceutical consulting in the employee safety space. My bread and butter is setting OELs and ADE. That's jargon for occupational exposure limits and acceptable daily exposures. So basically, it's the amount of a drug substance that the person making the tablets and capsules can be exposed to before there's an increased risk of adverse effect. And the ADE, interestingly enough, is the amount of drug A that can be found in drug B before it's a problem for the end user.
People that work in pharmaceutical factories, do they have to be really careful? I guess these compounds can build up in their blood through inhalation, through skin contact, through all kinds of stuff, right?
All of the above. I call those routes of exposure. You can through skin contact, through breathing it in, and through accidental or or intentional ingestion. And the thing about the pharmaceutical industry, Richard, is the chemicals that you're working with in that industry are designed to have an effect on the human body. So I told my operators every time I got a chance that if you provide a pathway of exposure, these chemicals are going to have the designed effect. Regardless of what it is, it will do it. And the fact of the matter is the pharmaceutical industry is very good at protecting their employees and making sure that we maintain exposures down below the level that would actually cause wanted or unwanted effects. But, that's neither here nor there. I was doing that and paying the bills and everything. But my entrepreneurial spirit always kept another iron in the fire. For as long as I can remember, I've always had my primary gig and then I had a side hustle. And the side hustle, only a couple points in time did it take over the primary gig and surpass toxicology. I've always had toxicology, Richard, as, the practice and everything. And then the one time in my life, I was actually CEO of a think tank. And when this think tank actually managed to get discovered and get some capital and start really doing some good work, I was running a think tank that had many geniuses in it, but it's really like herding chicken, if you will, because you're trying to work with independent thinkers and direct them on specific projects to get progress for venture capitalists to say, okay, we like that progress, we're going to give you some more money. And these critical thinkers are always, you want me to do this, but look at this cool thing, and look at this cool thing, and look at how this cool thing influences this cool thing. Well, it was that environment. And when I ran into Max, I met Max. Max is the founder of Live Longer Lab. And Max was he was on assignment for me. We were based in Colorado, but he was working out in Sacramento, trying to reformulate refrigerants that could replace the refrigerant that is currently being phased out and banned. And Max was very good at that. He did that job, and the company that Max provided the onus for is still in business. It's not in the refrigeration business because of EPA laws, but they're still in business with an app which develops for the HVAC industry. But Max's side hustle was Live Longer Labs. And Live Longer Labs is unique in the fact that they deal in time, and you really think about what's your most valuable asset. It's not money in the bank. It's not hard asset. Your most valuable asset is time. You can agree with me or not, but
yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, Live Longer Labs actually deals in time. And over the next 30 minutes, I'll give you that reason as to why. Live Longer Labs came into being because while Max was out in California working on this other project for me, he got word that his mother was entering early stage dementia. And there's nothing like a good crisis in the family to make you reevaluate how you're spending your minutes every day. And that happened to Max. And he's like, I don't want to be out here in California. I don't want to be doing this dead end refrigeration thing. So he disengaged and reassigned all of his responsibilities to other people in his research group. And he retreated back to his Colorado high country retreat and started to figure out how he could make his mom better. And what Max came up with was carbon 60. And he saw the original study in rats that were fed carbon 60. And these rats saw 90% increase in their lifespans. And that number is actually not perfectly correct because they didn't let the rats live out their lives. They artificially ended their lives after an enormous amount of time had gone by, and these rats should have been dead years ago. So carbon 60 apparently has the fountain of youth properties that Max had then discovered and got into a formulation. He started feeding it to himself first to make sure that it wasn't going to kill him. And then he started giving it to his mom. And the way the story goes is that Max's mom got all of her mental capacities back and led a normal life for another 8 years, enough to get back to the point where she almost irritated Max on a daily basis. And this old frail lady was living in Max's house. And then when Max made her better, he had this little compound up there where he had little out cabins. It's like a motel. You stay in your own little cabin. He moved his mother back out of his house into one of those little cabins because she was driving him absolutely crazy. So that's the real essence of the why for Live Longer Labs, if you will. And, Max has been in touch with different folks. One of his big time success stories is, he's got a close associate with a Johns Hopkins researcher that knows some of the world's elite elite, billionaires. And these guys are like, I can do everything I want. I can go anywhere I want. I can buy anything I want. How can I stick around long enough to enjoy all of these spoils of my work? And that question right there really drives home the most important asset, which is time. And that's where these guys were introduced to Max, and Max showed them all about carbon-60.
So how did he find out about it? What is the deal with it?
Well, Max is just original researcher extraordinaire. He found that one rat study, and then he sourced some carbon-60. He figured out that he could formulate it in oil. And so, if you go to livelongerlabs.com, you see there's multiple products. There's C60 that you can get in olive oil, in coconut oil, and in avocado oil. Those were the first 3 products that he put out. He also has it in a gel cap with black seed oil. And each one of these oils are powerful natural products in and of themselves, but they are just the delivery mechanism for the carbon-60. Carbon-60 is 172 times more potent than vitamin C as an antioxidant. It is this planet's greatest antioxidant. Essentially, what carbon-60 does is it eliminates oxidative stress and inflammation from the body. Let me say that again.
Okay.
Again, what carbon-60 does is it eliminates inflammation and oxidative stress from the body. Almost every single chronic condition and disease that afflicts the human race has a basis in oxidative stress. So what you're doing is you're buying time. And he knows that this is really proven because in the early days, there was a handful of people. I wasn't involved in this actual study, but I know the guys personally who were. Have you heard of the telomere test, where you can take a sample and send it off to this lab and they measure the length of your telomeres? A telomere is the spindle at the end of the chromosomal links in a cell when it goes to divide. And basically,
they're like shoelaces, I've heard, and as the pieces come off the end, it's the replication has lower fidelity.
Breaks down and the cells dies. Yes, the longer the telomeres, the more healthy your cell is. Well, these guys did a telomere test, and they took carbon-60 for a couple months, and then they redid the test. And the lab that was doing the test across the board said there must have been something wrong with those tests. Here's some more. We want you to redo it. Because across the board, every single person had seen significant growth in the length of their telomere. They reversed the aging of their cells.
What did they feel? How did they look?
Now, see, that's even better. When you're on the C60, you see the fine lines and wrinkles go away. You see color come back to gray hair. You see increased stamina and energy. And you see, like, when you blink your eyes, sometimes you see those little floaties. Those things go away. And Max is almost 70 years old, and he's running around with guys that are in their late 60s and early 70s and playing pickup basketball several times a week, full court, with a bunch of 18 to 25-year-olds, and he's outrunning them at almost 70 years old. They can't understand it. Go back to that rat study. That rat study increased the life of those rats by 90%. Ideal age for a male or life expectancy is about 72. Okay, you increase that by 90%, you're talking about 139, 140 years. If it would go, direct from rats to human, which makes 70-ish the new 35. Where Max's friends they're sitting right in that sweet spot. They're running around like a bunch of 30 or 40-year-olds, and they're in their 60s and 70s.
But what do they feel?
The common denominator,
more energy or better cognition, or what do they feel?
All of it. They got more energy. There's better sleep. They got better clarity of mind, and clarity of thought. And it's just when somebody starts taking C60, everybody has slightly different responses to it. But the overall trend is aches and pains go away. The joint health goes away, or the joint aches and pains. Like you could say it helps arthritis. Obviously we can't make any claims because it's not approved by the FDA, but this is what happens. And then you have some skeptic which say, this isn't doing anything, to which we always say, okay, stop taking it. And then those skeptics realize what carbon-60 is doing for them when they stop taking, because those aches and pains crawl back into play, and those aches and pains creep back up, and they realize, oh, that was gone. Oh, that was gone. So I almost relish when someone says, oh, it's not doing anything. And, the reason for that is, I don't know if you've heard, you're trying to really reverse aging. And the way the human body works, we peak about, 18 to 20 years old. And after 18 to 20 years old, oxidative stress really comes into play, starts taking over. more, and your body starts accumulating what's called senescent cells, or zombie cells sometimes. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but
Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah.
your body keeps your foot's on the gas pedal 100% of the time. From the day you're born, you are reproducing, you're dividing cells, you're making more tissue, you're getting bigger, you're getting stronger. And, by the time you're in your 20s, then the body starts accumulating these cells that aren't as efficient and they aren't contributing to the overall entity any longer. And you can see these age-related issues like, things like the fine lines and wrinkles, the receding hairlines, the aches and pains and stuff. As you start into the 20s and 30s, and then by the time you reach your 50s and 60s, you got probably almost up to 50 or 60% of your nutrients that are going into your body are getting zapped by these useless senescent cells. What those cells do is they steal all of the nutrients away from the cells that really need it.
Do they preferentially build up in certain tissues, or is it dependent on the person?
Well, it's all dependent on the person. Hereditary comes into play a little bit. It's just like, backs and bad knees run in the family. Well, that type of thing can come into play. But the senescent cell buildup, it's just because the physiology of the human is such that they're always trying to rapidly divide and stay in front of the curve. Does that make sense?
I mean, cells in general, or what do you mean? No, senescent cells.
Well, no, the senescent cells, and then it's the what you have to do is that you have to get in front of the oxidative stress that's created by this mass of the senescent cells, the zombie cells. And once you can do that, then that kind of flushes out those cells and it gets rid of them being a sink for the nutrient. And the way you can do that is through regular use of carbon-60, because the carbon-60 squashes the oxidative stress and it squashes the inflammation and it squashes that production of garbage from the senescent cells, and it starts to clean out the senescent cells by making your body's own pathways. The scientific term for it is apoptosis. It's programmed cell death. Every single cell in your body has the code to kill itself if there's something wrong. And what the elimination of the sink of senescent cells and oxidative stress and inflammation does is it activates that apoptotic pathway in those cells that are operating in a suboptimal manner. And your body cleans up the trash. It takes out the trash because you don't have to spend all those resources firefighting the inflammation that comes from those senescent cells. And that's why, you can actually say you're flushing the cell death, cell damage efficiently from the body because you're giving the body the tool it needs to get in front of that inflammation and oxidative stress.
So who discovered C60 and figured out how it worked?
Well, Max did a lot of the initial work. When he turned in his first patent on C60, he says there was only a handful of papers on it. And he got them all and he read it and he turned his stuff in. And then Big Pharma found it. And now every single Big Pharma company has a C60 group and they've filed for patents of everything under the sun. And the thing about the C60 market is it's very buyer beware. You can get a very good product from Live Longer Labs, livelongerlabs.com. It's good for two reasons. One, there's no impurities. It's ultra pure form of C60. And then two, there's no solvent used in the creation or processing of that C60. You can do a Google search on carbon-60 and you will find a handful articles that say, don't do it, it's dangerous, it results in toxicity. And I can almost tell you the articles that you would find. One of them is about side chains that are on the carbon molecules. It's not just carbon, there's other stuff. That other stuff breaks off and causes toxicity. And other products which are cheaper use solvents to help get the C60 solubilized and into the oil. And those solvents remain in higher concentrations than what they like to admit in those products. So you're using products that have toxic solvents and have toxic side. And that's why some of these 60 products can result in adverse effects. And they are very prevalent if you do the Google search and you look up carbon-60. If you stick to the product from Live Longer Lab, they use the ultra pure C60 and they use no solvents in their processing for those products. So it's a very buyer beware market. I have to tell you that. And then, so Max started with the oils. Olive oil was first, and then the coconut oil as a choice, and then avocado oil, because avocado oil tends to get that C60 across the blood-brain barrier a little bit better. And this C60 will go everywhere in the body. So you're squelching oxidative stress in all organs and all tissues and all muscles. And then he moved to a gel cap with black seed oil. And black seed oil is a tremendous product. Just tastes like crap. If you've ever tasted black seed oil, it's really, really bad taste. And so he put it in the gel cap so you never have to taste it. And then he went one step further and he calls this one 60 Complete. It's the 60 in the black seed oil with curcumin. So it adds the benefit of the curcumin as a natural product. And, there's a laundry list. If you were to Google carbon 60 or even black seed oil or curcumin, you're going to get 20,000 hits in half a second. And most of these things are the benefits, the good things that happen when you're using these very powerful natural products. So that really, he didn't stop there. His mom got better, lived another productive 8 years. Other people found out about it, and he's got a whole following of, if you've ever seen the movie Cocoon, where all those old folks found the fountain of youth and started doing stuff that they used to do 50 years earlier. Well, that's like how Max lives. And his whole group of followers, nobody can believe they're in their 70s because they look and feel and act a lot younger than that. And Max then formulated it for pet because, most people love their pets more than they love their brothers, sisters, moms, dads, and aunts and uncles. And if there was a way that they could get their pets longer term on this rock, most people would do that.
So how do you take C60 then? What form is it in? Is it in and all that stuff?
The oils it comes in a bottle that's designed to last a month that has a dropper. And you can take it right directly out of the bottle. You can use the dropper, you put it in a drink, or you can put it on something. Like for pets, it's a squirt bottle, you squirt it on their food. The gel caps that comes with a bottle with 150 gel caps, the label says take 5 a day. And so that lasts you a month. And then it's really kind of funny because when you got yourself saturated with carbon 60, once in a while I get a little bit, you burp up a little bit and it tastes like those old elementary school pencil sharpeners used to smell. Like you'd take the pencil sharpener off where you have that reservoir and sniff it. You did that as a kid. And it's just, that's what you burp it up. That's what it tastes like. And I always say, oh, pencil shaving. And so, at 5 a day, I get that. At 4 a day, I don't. So it's one of those things that you have to listen to your body. How is it making you feel? How is it making you react? And whether or not you get that, if you're burping it up a little, don't take.
How did it make you feel when you first started taking it?
The first thing that I noticed, Richard, was the floaties in my field of vision when I blinked my eyes gone. Almost immediately they were gone. The second thing that I noticed when I'm on C60 consistently, I can get by on 5 or 6 hours of sleep a night and go all day long. And the last thing that I noticed is that when I'm thinking about concept and difficult things, I got mental clarity like crazy. If I skip a couple days, then some of this stuff can start coming back. It's like, oh, I didn't get enough sleep is the first thing I noticed. But like my mom, she's 85 years old. She's been taking carbon 60 for 7 years. She hasn't been sick other than a minor cold twice in the last 7 years. She's healthy as can be. She had 2 knee replacements. She had the first knee replacement before she was taking carbon 60. She had the second knee replacement after she was taking carbon 60. And the second knee replacement actually happened during the COVID bullshit. And the therapy after the surgery, she did it herself at her house, taking carbon 60. She had a better recovery from her second knee replacement than she did with the first, where she was going for physical therapy from the provider and didn't have CC on board. So it took care of inflammation. It took care of all the oxidative stress that was going on. And it allowed her body to heal. So, my dad took it for a long time. He passed. He's been gone it'll be 3 years in August. But, he had idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which means his lungs were scarring up and losing the ability to exchange oxygen, carbon dioxide, and the doctors didn't know why. But I think being on the carbon 60, the C60 products extended his life by a good 3 years. So it gave, my mom and dad were married 60 years and, would have been longer except his body failed him. And I couldn't help that. But, we tried. And now Max is not done. He's got a new product coming on. It's a nootropic. And the nootropic is really a smart drug. It's a diverse group of substances which can improve human thinking, learning, and memory, especially in cases where these functions are already impaired. And because of that, he's calling it Einstein, E = MC squared. It's mental clarity squared. And it's carbon 60 that's formulated with a key ketone, beta hydroxybutyrate, that targets the brain. And he's going after oxidative stress in the brain. And what he has found is that, he's got this patented already, so I can tell you this. It's a molecularly altered ketone that stimulates dominant areas in the brain. And he actually has brain mapping tests that show increased neuron firing in people's brains by over 500 times. And, I tried the beta version product, and it's amazing. When you take it, it feels like your mind is just opened up. It's just must have been what the hippies thought the first time they did LSD or something 60.
Yeah, what form is the product in right now?
That product is most available to the general public. It's almost ready for production. And I actually have the authority, Richard, to authorize that as soon as it hits the public, that Max will have some sent.
That's cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And this particular product is just the next step in helping people to unlock the potential of the human body. And, the human body, they use such a small percentage of their brain, and they have such a capacity for healing that these products by Live Longer Labs, the carbon 60 oil, the carbon 60 gel caps, and now, E = MC squared, the mental clarity squared product, when that comes on board, these are going to be life-changing products for the people that are suffering from mentally debilitating diseases. The neuronal degenerative diseases are going to be the ones where these products are going to help them the most. And, these are chronic diseases that right now these people have no hope. They have no way to get better or even to stabilize their condition. And I think that this particular product is going to make a huge difference in that field. It's not FDA approved. It's not FDA sponsored. It's not a big drug company that's making a ton of money. It's a super smart guy that knows how to do research and critically think, that's sitting on the mountain, that his friends are afflicted with these conditions, so he finds a way to help them. That's the roots of Live Longer Lab.
Yeah,
that's
really cool.
The why. Yeah. So that's Max, and that's Live Longer Labs, and that's the carbon 60 product. I could talk about this for hours, Richard. I don't know what else you want to talk about.
Yeah, well, how long until it's available for the public, and where can people go to keep tabs on its progress?
You can go to livelongerlabs.com to find out exactly when it hits the market, because that's the website you can order it from. That's the website you can order all of these products from. If you want to know more about how this stuff works, if you get to the How Does This Work video, you might see me on his website. And, my company is Superior Toxicology. You go to superiortoxicology.com and hit the contact page if you have specific questions on how it works, why it works, specific mechanisms, or, hey, my girlfriend's mother's friend's doctor has this condition. Do you think it'll help that? All those types of questions are fair game. I'm happy to answer those. Usually after podcasts, multiple rounds of questions come in. So if you do email me or send me a contact sheet, give me a little time to answer, but I'm happy to answer everybody's questions and get everybody pointed in the right direction. And if you go to Live Longer Labs and you end up ordering product, there is a coupon code. It's ERJOE15, Dr. Joe 15, that you can put in, and it'll give you a discount. I don't know how much it is, but it's some sort of a discount. So if somebody wants to try those products and see what the fuss is all about, see if it does anything wonderful for you, or if you're a skeptic and you say, nah, this isn't going to work, I'll give it a shot. We'll see.
Should it be combined with other, put into drinks, or is it just pills to swallow? Or you said there's like an eyedropper, there's different forms of it.
Right. You can get the 3 different oils. You can get a gel cap, and I think the mental clarity squared is going to be a liquid. So you can combine it with just about everything. I wouldn't combine it with an oxidative therapy, because this is an antioxidative therapy. And if you combine those two things, they would cancel out and you wouldn't get the benefit of either one of them. So don't take it if you're doing like ozone therapy, or if you're taking chlorine dioxide, or if you're inhaling hydrogen peroxide, or any of those types of hardcore oxidative
It'd be cool
therapies.
if you could, it's too bad you can't put this into a vape, then everyone would have it, no problem,
Yeah, and that's true. Everybody has that as a vice.
I wouldn't be good for them, but then every teenager in America would have it.
Well, if teenagers actually get on board and start using C60 products early in their life, then what they do is they don't go through the signs of aging. They keep their bodies healthy. And that's one way you don't have to break down and then try to recover. And the ketone product, the E = MC squared, the mental clarity squared, that beta hydroxybutyrate we've determined is actually picking up the electrons that are produced when cells make energy in the mitochondria. It's inefficient and they spits out electrons. Well, this ketone picks up those electrons and returns them back to the cellular respiration mechanism before those electrons have a chance to go out and create oxidative stress. So you're preventing the oxidative stress before it even even has a chance to happen. If you think about that, that's a huge breakthrough in antioxidant therapy.
Yeah, well, that's
So-
excellent. Okay, so Live
Yeah,
Longer Labs is the central repository where people can find out more. And
Absolutely.
what's your estimation on how long until these products are orderable by regular folks?
You know what? He wouldn't have had me say it if it's not going to be available. I would say in the next few weeks to month. Now,
All right, well, tell
really
Max
quick.
we may not all live as long as him, so he has to hurry before he's like 300 years old, you know?
And, Max is, he's had the benefit of these products for a good 10 years now, and it's 12 years maybe. And so he's got a head start to the rest. The rest of us have to start from where we are, living our own lives and our own toxic soup, and go from there to get to where we need to go.
All right, well, Joe, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking about this. It's very interesting,
you
and
bet.
I'm definitely looking forward to a sample when you all get them and trying them,
Absolutely. I'll make sure you get it. And I appreciate the chance to come on and talk. Again, it's livelongerlabs.com. If you need me, it's superiortoxicology.com.
If you like this podcast, please click the link in the description to subscribe and review us on iTunes.
You've been listening to the Finding Genius podcast with Richard Jacobs. If you like what you hear, be sure to review and subscribe to the Finding Genius podcast on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And want to be smarter than everybody else? Become a premium member at findinggeniuspodcast.com. This podcast is for information only. No advice of any kind is being given. Any action you take or don't take as a result of listening is your sole responsibility. Consult professionals when advice is needed.